2 of 10, 2 of 10, 1 of 12, 4 of 10. All right. 6 blah 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 blee 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 blah. Okay, let's go get the beer. The beer's right here. Beer's right here. And we're gonna launch Homer Cocktail 14. We're gonna talk about temperament. We're gonna talk about my major in community college communication studies. We're gonna talk about Carl Jung, psychologist Carl Jung. We're gonna talk about Kiersey Bates and their analysis of Carl Jung, his theories of temperament, personality types, in other words. 75% of the population is sensory oriented. Okay, let's have a beer real quick. All right there. This past Halloween, it's mid-November now. This past Halloween, I got this Jason mask. I got a couple of other masks, and I started playing guitar. And some of my other Homer Cocktail sites, Homer Cocktail 13 in particular, I was playing with some cover music and a couple of gags, and I use a mask. I have a ghost face, the Scream guy. I have an alien mask, and I had a good time, so I went ahead and bought other accessories. I got a pilgrim's hat, just got this crown, and I have some others, a sleuth cap. I got a Love Guru beard and all that. But we're going to launch Homer Cocktail 14, which is going to be fantasy sports. When I was a kid, I used to love all sports. I grew up half my childhood in San Bernardino, which is about 15 miles away. I used to play basketball with the guy that eventually became an LA Clipper. His first name's Edric. We'll just leave it at that. I used to play with a couple of twins, and used to have a good time. We used to play football in the street with the Nerf. I was in a Little League baseball, and we used to go down. It's not even a 2-minute walk from my house, the Little League field. We used to love football, basketball, and baseball, and we used to make up our own sports and stuff. ESPN was kind of new back then. Hold on. There's a show called Vic's Vacant Lot. And I always wanted to get one of our sports on there because we used to make up our own shit and stuff. And I moved to Fontana pretty much permanently. It's, like I said, about 15 miles away. In '85, and I played organized football on a junior high team called the Sequoia Braves. And part of my history in sports seems to be win or lose. Major win, major lose. We didn't win any games when I was in 9th grade on the Braves, but I had the time of my life. I was part of a subset of a team. The Braves were the team on the outside, but we were the termites. We were backup wide receivers and defensive backs. There were 7 of us. We just had a good time. And one time during practice, we returned a kick for a touchdown. And we're the reserves, and we're not supposed to be doing that against the first team. And we had a good time. Now what happened is the next year I was going to Fontana High School. And at that time, there were only 3 junior high teams in the mid-'80s, and there's 1 high school. Now there's 5 high schools, and God, I don't know how many junior highs. But when I was a junior in high school, we won the national championship. So I played football with people that were on that national championship team, and I was always pretty much working during high school. But it doesn't say that I didn't love football and all. I was on an organized basketball team in the mid-'90s with some warehouse guys, and I already talked about Little League. But, okay, fantasy sports here. I've also done well in mathematics. I've gone all the way to calculus. And I always wanted to play fantasy sports ever since it's come out. And I think I first heard of it during the 80s. But back then the computers were dog shit. Commodore 64 was pretty much the top of the line home PC at some point. And then Commodore came out with the 128, which was like double. So you went from 64K, we're talking about K, right? That's a Word document basically now. It's far less than a megabyte, you understand? A short song is 3 megabytes, right? So we're talking about the 64K machine during the 80s. And now we're up to gigabytes. I have a hard drive that's 700 gigabytes. So it goes from K to megabytes to gigabytes, and I have 700 gigabytes for memory storage on one of my things. And I only have about 3 minutes left to wrap this up. So I went all those years without playing fantasy sports. And in the early inception of fantasy, you had to keep track of stats yourself and, whatever your league was and all. And Yahoo and ESPN and some other online services have made it a lot easier. They tabulate things for you, they organize things for you. And I started last year, just a year ago. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to get this Pro Preview magazine. They had this way of tabulating what they call a talent quotient. And I thought that was cool, They rate the running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, special teams, coaches, the draft, etc. On a scale of 1 to 10, and then you get a total score, which is your talent quotient or whatever it is. And then they predict teams based off that. But I want to do a site for fantasy sports, and we'll get back to temperament now. 25% of the population's intuitive. I mentioned 75% sensory. That means people rely on their 5 senses more than anything else. There's no such thing as a moral victory. If the score says 21-20 at the end of the game, that means you won, And I play guitar, and guitar players and other musicians and artists are usually deemed, according to Carl Jung, to be intuitive. And within the intuitive category, you could be an intuitive thinker, which is scientist, or intuitive feeler, which is usually someone in the arts, a musician, actor, actress, whatever. And that's 25% of the population, which is intuitive. If you're sensory, it goes by if you're judging or perceiving. A judging person puts labels. This is a can of beer. This is a can of beer right here. Okay? That's a judging person. A perceiving person is flexible, very flexible. Oh, what's this? Maybe it's an ash can. This could be an ash can. Hey, I don't know. It's hey, this is 3 cents right here. This is 3 cents. When I recycle it. A perceiving person isn't stringent on putting labels on things. And the moral of this is most of my sites are intuitive oriented. Trying to fill in the blanks and connect the dots. But this side, I hope to connect to my inner child, which is a little more sensory, a little more 5 senses. Sight, hearing, touch, taste, and smell. And there's ways of winning. There's ways of winning these things. I've only been at it a year. And I'll try to go with what's got me successful. It doesn't guarantee a championship. But I can almost guarantee you'll be better than you otherwise would be, or at least better than average. And we'll touch on it. You guys hang in there. Have a good time. Party on.